Richmond Raceway, you'll find history everywhere.
5, 6, 7, 8. 8 automobiles entangled up.
These are moments to celebrate from nearly 80 years of memories gone by.
There's the hook. Bang.
On Strawberry Hill, Action Track isn't just a nickname. It's a place where the greats always seem to rise to the occasion.
Busher wins at the short track.
It's the moment they've been waiting for, and so have you. It's time for another Around the Track, and it starts now.
You rested? You're ready? Well, I hope so, because after a 2-week break, NASCAR is back, and so is the fastest 30 minutes in all of sports. Welcome back to Around the Track. I'm Gabe McDonald. Carla Gebhardt is on assignment this week, but no worries. She's back when we hit Michigan next week. But for now, we're getting you ready for the action at Richmond Raceway. And to do that, we're bringing in none other than America's crew chief himself, Larry McReynolds, to break down not only this weekend's race, but the final 4 weeks until the playoffs. Plus, we've got huge news from the Xfinity Series and Dale Jr. But first, Virginia is not for lovers, at least just this week. So let's go ahead and break this one down. It's round 2 at Richmond, the second race here in 2024. Back in the spring, things were pretty one-sided, but this time around we're getting spicy. NASCAR is implementing a tire option, just like they did at the All-Star race in North Wilkesboro this year. We'll have more on that in just a little bit. But back to Richmond, though. It's a short track, so passing here is going to be at a premium. Not only that, but 12 degrees of banking in the turns and a big fat 0-degree bank on the straightaways. Drivers face a unique challenge at this track where there is little to no grip. Maybe even a bigger challenge for the drivers who haven't clinched a playoff spot just yet this season.
It's going to be different this time around. They're changing the tire, so the domination that we had there in the spring, we'll have to kind of figure out how to recapture it and hopefully come up with something that'll work as good as we have in the past.
We have four races left to win a race now to get into the playoffs, and Richmond's been a pretty good track for us. So put all of our focus on that and then go on to the next and see what happens.
It depends on the speed difference from compound to compound. I'm not 100% sure what that's going to be, right? And what does the fall off look like? I don't know. Maybe but I don't know.
So let's go ahead and do Richmond by the numbers. We're going 400 laps over this 3/4 of a mile asphalt track, 300 miles total in a D-shaped oval. Now 6, it's a big number here at Richmond because it's how many wins Kyle Busch has at the track, which is more than any active driver on the circuit. But don't sleep on Denny Hamlin or Martin Truex Jr. either. They have 5 and 3 wins at Richmond respectively. For a short track, this ends up being more like a super speedway when it comes to results because only 18% of pole winners have taken the crown at the action track. $7.9 million, it's what's on the line in this Cup Series race here at Richmond. Well, as NASCAR makes its return from the Olympic break, it's time to go trackside up at Richmond with Nolan Knight. Nolan, how's everything looking this weekend for this race? Obviously, we've got the Cookout 400 coming up this weekend at Richmond. A lot of excitement around NASCAR making its return after a 2-week break.
Yeah, absolutely. The excitement through the roof here at Richmond Raceway. I mean, we're excited for this second race, obviously. The night race earlier in March. We got another night race here this weekend as well. March the first time since 2019 that both the spring and summer races are here at night underneath the lights. But the big question and excitement is probably about the option tires that are going to be taking place going on this weekend as well.
And you mentioned those tires. Obviously, they have the prime option, but also the option tires as well. We saw those in play at the All-Star in the All-Star race in North Wilkesboro. How will those kind of impact this race, and what have you been hearing from some of the teams maybe about how the tire is going to impact the strategy this weekend?
Yeah, when I was talking to drivers all throughout the week, everyone's talking about the tire fall off, right? And Richmond's notorious for it. The asphalt here is decades old. And so when you throw in this new tire option for these teams, it's going to be interesting to see how they manage these two sets of tires. What's notable about these two is the prime tires, the regular Goodyear ones, the harder rubber tires, those will be yellow lettering, whereas the option tires, they'll be red. So actually, when you're in the stands, you'll be able to see the strategy going on as you're in the grandstands watching this race go on to see when teams have decided to go with the softer tire or, of course, the harder rubber prime ones.
It's also worth noting that we got to watch for the rain, and the wet weather tires will also be in play as well. Those are the light lettering. Nolan, we appreciate the time. Enjoy the race this weekend. All right, well, do you know what America's crew chief did over the Olympic break? He tried to figure out how to make auto racing an Olympic sport. But either way, we're going to give an Olympic medal to America's crew chief himself, Larry McReynolds. Larry, good to have you back. Are you ready to get back racing this weekend?
I'm always ready for racing. I mean, it's hard to believe a much-needed 2-week off period because we were 23 consecutive weeks, going all the way back to the Daytona 500 in February, 2 weeks off, and now it's 14 races in a row. The next time we have an off week, we'll be about ready to put the turkey in the oven.
Now, first things first, of course, here at Richmond, you just heard the game is totally changed with the tire option this weekend. How will that affect everybody's strategy here at Richmond?
Gabe, I have talked to more crew chiefs and more drivers over the last 2 weeks, and I have gathered a lot of information. You know, the tire fall off at Richmond is so huge. I mean, when you take maybe brand new sticker tires and maybe 30-lap tires, you're talking about 2 to 2.5 seconds of give up. And Richmond is renowned for long green flag runs. Honestly, I think the only way those red option tires come into play is if we have a real late race caution in one of the stages, or more particular, a late race caution in the race, because I know they tested this tire at Iowa Speedway a few weeks ago. Iowa's different from Richmond, but at that test, this red option tire, 25 laps, and it was pretty much done.
Now, going back to the spring race, though, they actually started that one on the wet weather tires. You know, how did that impact just the outcome of that race and how they got started? Because that was the first time that we saw them in a points race on an oval back this spring.
Really, the only thing it accomplished, it let us get racing earlier than we would have. Without the wet weather tire, we were not going to be able to start the race until that track was absolutely dry. So the good thing about the wet weather tires, when you put them on these 36, 37 race cars, the heat from those race cars, they expedite the drying of the racetrack. So I think that's the biggest thing. But the good news, Gabe, put those white weather tires back in the trailer.
Yeah.
Tropical Storm Debbie, she has left the building.
Hey, she is long gone. Of course, we got to keep going with that race as well, because Denny Hamlin, he got it done. We all know what happened the last time. A pretty controversial ending there with him and Martin Truex Jr. But, of course, Richmond, it's a place where pretty much anybody can win from anywhere, like we just alluded to. Do you like Denny Hamlin to repeat this weekend? I mean, how do you like his chances, you know, here? Obviously, won early in the spring.
I don't know how in the world you bet against Denny Hamlin, because he and his crew chief, Chris Gabehart, they have figured this Gen 7 car out, especially at the short tracks. We've been there 5 previous times with the Gen 7 car. They've won it twice. I think regardless of what generation of car or what tire combination, what Denny Hamlin is a master is, yeah, they look at the stopwatch. You never quit looking at the stopwatch, but Denny Hamlin knows the feel he needs for that wore-out racetrack, and he is a master at tire management, and that's something a driver has to do to be successful at that 3/4-mile track.
Now, he's safely in the playoffs because he has obviously 3 wins this year. He's second in the point standings, just behind Carl Larson, but including this weekend, just 4 races left, but 4 open playoff spots as well with 12 drivers coming up. And, of course, when it comes to the points, realistically, we have 5 drivers in the hunt. So we're going ahead and look at the standings real quick, and then we're going to get your thoughts. Of course, Martin Truex Jr., he's 108 points clear of the cut line, so we're not really worried about him. His teammate at JGR, Ty Gibbs, is 42 points up above the cut line. But here's where it gets a little bit dicey. Chris Buescher, who says he's not worried about getting into the postseason, he's 17 points from the cut. And then you have Ross Chastain, pretty much living on a prayer in that final spot, just 7 points in front of Bubba Wallace, with the last 2 races to put things together, getting a top 5 and a stage win at Indy before the Olympic break. So, of course, you heard from Chase Briscoe earlier in the show. He's 83 points behind Ross. So obviously he has a lot of ground to make up there. But Larry, when you look at these guys who are on the bubble, of course, MTJ obviously going to be one of the heavy favorites, but it's these other guys on the bubble. Do you like their chances? Does Richmond kind of favor some of these drivers this weekend?
Well, we know Chris Buescher, he won this race a year ago. We know Martin Truex Jr., he's won there 3 times. I look at the other drivers, and Ross Chastain, I'm a little concerned about that 1 car right now. You know, he made it to the championship 4 a couple of years ago, but the speed is just not there. Bubba Wallace, yeah, he's never won at Richmond, but they've got speed in that Toyota right now. They've got speed in practice, they've got speed in qualifying, they got speed in the race. But I think the big thing when I look at those drivers around that cut line, yeah, a win is the golden ticket to the playoffs. You want as good of a finish, but stage points. That's one reason Bubba Wallace is in this position. All of those stage points he scored at Indianapolis a few weeks ago.
Yeah, definitely made up a lot of ground there. And, of course, Larry's sticking around, and you should too, because a future star of the sport wants you to know that he is the showstopper.
Racing was something the family always enjoyed and liked, and then, yeah, they just kind of threw me on a bike.
And the rest, as they say, is history. Over the past several years, Sheldon Creed has made a name for himself in both the Trucks and Xfinity series. A look at his journey through racing is still to come. Plus, a silly season shakeup over the Olympic break that had everyone in the industry talking. What's next for Daniel Suarez and Corey LaJoie after 2024? We'll discuss that as well. Plus, Bristol Motor Speedway will be hosting more of the NASCAR races in 2025. What other sport is coming to the Last Great Coliseum? We'll have those details and more coming up on Around the Track. Back on Around the Track with another playoff update. Changes to the course for the Bank of America Roval 400 are officially underway. With the elimination race just over 2 months away, crews are hard at work at Charlotte Motor Speedway, paving sections of the 17-turn course. Now, the main changes are coming in turns 6 and 7, which will create a longer infield straightaway. Additional work on the front stretch chicane and the final corners of the course is set to begin later this month, with all projects set to be completed by the end of August. This year's Roval race, the cutoff race in the round of 12, is set for Sunday, October 13th in Charlotte. Well, talking some Xfinity racing now, Sheldon Creed has established himself as one of the top drivers at that level after winning a Truck Series championship in 2020. However, the 26-year-old has had a unique rise to get to where he is now in his career. Our Carla Gebhardt has more on Creed's journey in this week's Garage Confidential.
Hi, I'm Sheldon Creed, and I drive the number 18 GR Supra for Joe Gibbs Racing.
Most drivers start their careers out on 4 wheels, but Creed came up on 2. Winning a state championship in California in BMX at just 6 years old.
I grew up on the West Coast in Southern California, so the desert, the river, anything action sports, the snow, we have really it all. My grandpa actually raced flat track motorcycles, so racing was something the family always enjoyed and liked, and then, yeah, they just kind of threw me on a bike.
Once the path and stock cars came into play, Creed soared. Joining the ARCA Menard Series in 2016, he won a championship just 2 years later.
They call him the showstopper. He's won at just about everything.
In 2019, he was elevated into the Truck Series and won a title in 2020. By 2021, he had committed to joining Richard Childress Racing in the number 2 car for 2022. And although he was respectful,
could this be the night?
And a bit of a wizard.
Oh my goodness! Wow, what a save!
He did not win a race, which caused some tension within RCR and ultimately a move to Team Toyota at Joe Gibbs Racing to drive the 18 in 2024. You've heard the quote, if you're not first, you're last. But in Creed's case, it's more like if you're not first, you're second.
C-Bell pulling away.
With a second-place finish at New Hampshire this season, he's now tied Hall of Famer Dale Jarrett and current Cup driver Daniel Hemrick with the most second-place finishes in the Xfinity Series without a win.
Run second 10 times, which is not a goal I don't think you write or want, but yeah, it's been nothing short of a struggle. We've had really good times and a lot of fun, and then there's also been hard times throughout the couple years.
While he continues to fight for that first win, his life off the track is pretty fast and focused as well. He and his wife Cammie have 2 boys, 2 and under, and even with them, racing and cars are just a way of life.
We're deep in toddler life right now. Axel's learning something new every day and kind of knows what Dad does on the weekends and loves race cars. Monster trucks are really his thing right now.
Creed's consistency has kept him in the conversation with some of the top-tier guys in the Xfinity Series, but it's his quiet confidence that's keeping him motivated for the next big moment in his career.
Wins are still on the list, goals are still climbing, and a championship is still something that I think I'm very capable of. You know, it's right there, right? It's every week working at it, and it hasn't been a lack of effort. So it's gonna happen. It's just I hope it's sooner than later.
Good stuff there. Thanks to Carla for that. Well, we've seen college football at Bristol Motor Speedway, but soon America's pastime will make its way to the last great Coliseum. Which MLB teams are playing at Bristol Motor Speedway and when? That's coming up. Plus, we hear from the man himself. Corey LaJoie goes in depth on his upcoming departure from Spire Motorsports. That and much more when Around the Track continues next. All right, folks, the rumors are true. You can add a Major League Baseball game to the list of events happening at Bristol Motor Speedway. August 2nd, 2025, the Atlanta Braves and the Cincinnati Reds will take over the last great Coliseum for a regular season game. The field dimensions will be 330 in corners, 400 to center field, 380 to left center, and 375 to right center. And don't worry about seating because there will be plenty. And we're hearing they're looking to pack over 100,000 people into Bristol for an attendance record at the track. And there are plenty of baseball fans in NASCAR, including these guys you're about to hear from.
I never thought that I would see a baseball field on the infield of a NASCAR track, especially this one, knowing that, all these haulers and whatnot are packed in here like sardines. But it's really exciting to look at. We got the foul lines and whatnot. I'm a little worried about some of these lines over top, but certainly excited that the Atlanta Braves are going to be a part of this epic event.
The part that I'm the most excited about is I've seen what they've done for a football game here, and to see Bristol Motor Speedway full. And I think for a baseball game, I think will be great. But the thing that I think this puts into perspective is just the size of all these facilities. We heard Chipper talk about what it looks like with everything in the infield, but when you take everything out, I think people are actually shocked to see the size of a racetrack that we would call a short track. And now we're going to put a baseball field in the infield here, so I'm looking forward to it. But great event, looking forward to coming and being a part of the event.
All right, Larry, so we've had NFL exhibition games at Bristol, college football games, hockey games, and more, but this is a first. No pun intended here. Is this fair or foul for NASCAR to host MLB next year?
I absolutely love it. I mean, we raced on a quarter-mile racetrack inside the LA Coliseum. How come we can't play baseball in the infield at Bristol Motor Speedway? But, Marcus Smith, CEO and president of SMI, who owns Bristol Motor Speedway, he thrives on 4 words. That will not work. He will show you that it will work. But my Braves, I don't care where they're playing, they've got to get their act together. I know we've got some injuries right now, but they've got to step things up. It's going to be tough to catch the Phillies. They're going to have to depend on, I think, a wild card.
We'll see if they can do it, but next year that's going to be a very fun game at Bristol. Where, of course, there's no real escaping the question when he hosts one of racing's most popular podcasts. Of course, Corey LaJoie, he will not be back with Spire Motorsports in 2025. The current driver, the number 7, said he was surprised when he got the news during the first week of the Olympic break, but he took it head on, addressing how it went down and what's next for the longtime driver on his podcast, Stacking Pins.
I don't know what the next step is. It's been a unique situation with all the variables that are in play, but nonetheless, I'm at peace with it. I'm excited about what the next chapter holds, and I'm pretty motivated to still be the first one to put a win banner on the wall at Spire, a real one. They have a trophy, but that wasn't really a real team back in the day. So it's a real team now. Still want to be the first one to put a trophy in the trophy case on the cup side there, and continue to finish this thing strong with the last 14 races.
All right, Larry, so LaJoie out. We just heard that Daniel Suarez has extended a year with Trackhouse, and the future has arrived in the Xfinity Series. Connor Zilisch just signed with Dale Jr. and Junior Motorsports. Which one of these is really the biggest headliner? Of course, silly season kind of alive and well right now.
We may have went almost 3 weeks without racing, but we did not go 3 weeks without news and announcement. But the Corey LaJoie deal is just interesting. They just had hired Rodney Childers, the most active winning crew chief in the garage area, the 2014 championship crew chief, to be his crew chief for 2025, and now the clear blue, Spire Motorsports releases Corey LaJoie. It makes me wonder, what is the rest of the story? I think when we hear who's going to drive that 7 car, and I have no idea, I think when we get that announcement who's going to drive that 7 car in 2025, we're going to go, aha, now it all makes sense. I think it's going to be a big surprise.
And real quick, Zilisch, I mean, just what do you make of his rise, just into the Xfinity Series, being able to race for one of the greats too?
I don't even know if he started rising yet. He just turned 18 years old. I mean, he's a Rolex 24 winner, 12 hours of Sebring. I think he possibly is going to win this ARCA Menard Series East Championship. He's going to get 4 races in that 88 car this year. Trackhouse Racing, we know he's a driver development for that organization. I think they have a diamond in the rough.
Certainly a name to watch for. Well, the last time we were at Richmond, it might have been controversial, but Denny Hamlin, he beat your favorite driver, folks. Victory lane locks from Larry Mack and myself. Those are up next right here on Around the Track. Back here on Around the Track as we look ahead, and there's not much time left for the guys to get into the playoffs. After this weekend in Richmond, we'll go to Michigan. Then it's the chaos from where we started the season, Daytona International Speedway. And then we're going to close out the season with a major, a crown jewel, if you will, the Southern 500 at Darlington Raceway. And then the playoffs, they begin in Atlanta coming up on September 8th. And before we wrap things up, it's time to give our picks for the race, a.k.a. our Victory Lane Locks. Larry, I know we've had you on as a guest plenty of times, but this is your first time giving a pick for a race. You ready to do it?
I am ready.
Let's go ahead and get it. Who you got this weekend?
Well, you can't go wrong going with Joe Gibbs Racing. They have won 19 times there, more than any other organization. And Denny Hamlin, he's been Mr. Short Track. He's won 2 of our 4 short tracks this year, including Richmond. I mentioned it earlier. He is a master at tire management. Denny Hamlin will finally get back on track, and he will get his 4th win of 2024.
All right, we'd like to join that 4-win club with Kyle Larson. Well, I've picked this man a lot this season. and it hasn't panned out, but I'm going with Martin Truex Jr., his Joe Gibbs teammate. You said it's hard to bet against that team. I like MTJ to lock up that playoff spot in his final full-time season. He's safely above the cut line for now, like we mentioned earlier. I know he's starving for a win this season. He has 4 top 5 so far, including that 4th place finish earlier this season at Richmond in a rather controversial ending, if we all remember. But for his career, 3 wins at Richmond. I like that to become 4. And of course, a win would leave 3 playoff spots open with 3 regular season races to go. Now, we obviously picked 2 of the heavy favorites. Maybe do you have a dark horse that can maybe sneak in and get a win this weekend?
Wow, yeah. I mean, I think Chris Buescher, and I wouldn't consider him a dark horse because he did win this race a year ago. They've come back to life. They're 17 points above that cut line right now. This is maybe where he can join his teammate Brad Keselowski and be a part of the playoffs as they both were in 2023.
Yeah, he definitely wants to get that win. He obviously has come very close on a number of occasions so far this year. We'll see if he can get it done and sneak into the playoffs. Well, for Larry, Matt, Carla Gebhardt, and myself, appreciate you tuning in to Around the Track. We're going to see you right back here next week for another edition of ATT when we preview the race at Richmond. Enjoy the race at Richmond, everybody. We'll see you next weekend.